listen to this. In 1943, Carl Jung revealed something that changed the lives of many people who heard it, and I'm going to explain it to you in a moment. What if the pain you're avoiding is actually the way to your healing? We live in a world that teaches avoidance through productivity, distraction, and even positivity. But Carl Jung believed that what we repress doesn't disappear, it waits. And the more you numb yourself to your emotions, the further away you get from who you really are. In this video, we explore what happens when you stop running away from your emotions and instead start listening to them. Because healing doesn't start with doing more. It starts with feeling what you are afraid to feel. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will drive your life and you will call it destiny." And what is numbness if not subconscious pain waiting to be seen? It is not about weakness, it is about courage. Courage to turn inward, to face sadness, anger, emptiness, not to fix it, but to feel it. And in that feeling, something starts changing, not because you force it, but because you allow it. When you stop numbing, you start remembering. And what you remember can bring you back to life. Don't skip it. What is waiting for you inside is not something to be afraid of, but something to be reclaimed. I'm about to tell you 7 chapters. Stay till the end, because these chapters are critical for you to get to the best stage of your life. Now send a strong signal to the universe by writing 77 in the comments. This number really has a tremendous impact. Also, don't forget to send the video to someone you love. Now we go deeper. Part 1. The paradox of emotions. This word alone can make some people uncomfortable. Because in a culture built on performance, speed, and self-improvement, emotions are often reduced to distractions, distracting interruptions to the real work of being successful, productive, and in control. We are taught that emotions are obstacles to be overcome, not signals to be understood. Pain was taught to be a problem to be solved, not a message to be heard. But Carl Jung challenged this view at its core. Why are you afraid of your own depth? What are you avoiding when you avoid what you feel? He asked. To feel is to get in touch with what is real. And ironically, that's what makes it scary. Pain is real, grief is real, emptiness is real. That's why we become numb to screens, to programs, to substances, to the stories we tell ourselves to make life seem good. We keep ourselves distracted and good, while at the same time cutting ourselves off from parts of the soul that could lead to our healing. But Jung understood this dynamic well. He believed that the soul, like nature, seeks balance, and what we repress does not disappear. It goes down into the unconscious. There it grows in intensity and complexity and demands to be felt one day. There is a paradox here. What we avoid the most is often the very thing that will liberate us. But freedom does not come through avoidance. It comes through integration, and integration starts with feeling. Not by analyzing, not by reasoning, by feeling. In Jungian psychology, this is the beginning of individuation. The process of becoming whole requires us to make conscious the contents we keep in the shadows. And one of the most common contents lurking there is emotional pain. Pain is not just suffering, it is a sign. It says that something is misaligned, unheard, unprocessed. But in a society addicted to comfort and image, pain becomes taboo. We hide it not only from others, but also from ourselves. And Jung would say, that's when it becomes dangerous. Because everything that you don't consciously relate to relates to you in unconscious ways. Repressed grief can manifest as apathy. Rejected anger can surface as self-sabotage. Buried fear can manifest as perfectionism. You are not free from emotion just because you refuse to feel it. You are its slave, silently, unknowingly. And so Jung invites us to take a radical step. Stop numbing, start listening. Doing this is not weakness, it is revolutionary. Because in that silence, you don't just hear your pain. You hear the self underneath the pain. You hear what the ego is suppressing in its obsession with control. Jung was clear, the ego is not the enemy, but it is not the whole either. And when the ego tries to manage or suppress emotional experience, it disconnects us from the deeper layers of reality that the unconscious holds. Feeling is the unconscious's way of speaking. And the language can be raw, sadness, shame, confusion, but it is always honest. To feel again is to return to the dialogue. And this dialogue between the ego and the subconscious is the basis for inner transformation. But it starts small. You give yourself permission to cry, not because it is dramatic, but because the body needs it. You sit with discomfort, not to get over it, but to get into it. You stop asking, "How can I fix this?" and start asking, "What is this showing me?" And gradually you realize, the emotions you were afraid of were not monsters. They were messengers. They were parts of you that you left behind in your quest for well-being. And now they are coming home. This is what Jung meant when he talked about the shadow. Not only the dark or evil parts of the psyche, but also the rejected parts. Emotional numbing is one of the most common tools the ego uses to keep the shadow buried. Because the shadow threatens the story we tell ourselves about who we are, especially the "I am powerful, I am good, I am in control" story. But what if power is not control? What if true power is the ability to feel what is real without the need to escape, numb, or correct? When we stop numbing, we start metabolizing our emotional reality. And from this reality, we begin to live in harmony with our deeper nature, not reactively, not defensively, but sensitively. Jung would say that this is where transformation begins, not by adding something new, but by remembering something old, something essential, something that has been taken away. And therein lies the paradox. Feeling doesn't trap you. It liberates you. It does not weaken you. It makes you whole, because the person you are striving to be already lives in the parts you refuse to feel. Your sadness contains your capacity for depth. Your anger contains your capacity for limits. Your fear contains your capacity for courage. What about your numbness? It's not a void. It is a door to a life unlived, the unspoken truth, the forgotten self. But to walk through that door, you have to stop asking, "How do I overcome this feeling?" and start asking, "What does this feeling want me to know?" Because as Jung taught, every emotion, especially painful ones, is a call from the unconscious. It's not just a call to feel, it's a call to be. Part 2, Shadow Work and Wisdom in Pain. There's a reason you avoid pain. Not because you are weak. Pain contains parts of yourself that you have been taught to fear. You have been told, directly or indirectly, that certain emotions are dangerous, certain desires are shameful, certain thoughts should never be spoken, not even to yourself. And so these were pushed down, buried deep in the subconscious, and formed what Carl Jung called the shadow. Shadow work is not about correcting yourself. It is about meeting yourself. Pain is not your enemy. It is your soul trying to communicate. It is grief that wants to be witnessed. It is anger that asks for boundaries. It is fear that offers the door to courage. When you stop numbing and start feeling, you don't fall apart. You fall into yourself. This is the paradox. The emotions we fear are often the keys to becoming whole. Jung said, "Without pain, there can be no consciousness. But pain, when it is fully felt, becomes insight, and insight becomes freedom." The deeper you go into this feeling process, the more you will discover that the shadow is not just something to be overcome, but something to be integrated. The subconscious mind doesn't want to fight with the conscious mind. It wants to work in cooperation. The struggle you feel is not just between good and bad, but between parts of yourself that you have allowed to develop and parts of yourself that you have pushed into the darkness. Embracing the shadow means embracing your full and true self. It is about letting go of the artificial construct of perfection and learning to live with all the beautiful contradictions that make you who you are. It doesn't mean that you will never feel pain again, but rather that you will begin to see pain as a natural part of the growth process. You will stop avoiding it. You will stop trying to control it, and instead you will start to trust it as a guide. When you begin to make peace with your shadow, you release the energy that was once spent suppressing your truth. You regain your power. This process doesn't happen overnight, but with each small step, the ego becomes less resistant and the subconscious more cooperative. you begin to experience life with a new sense of harmony, no longer caught in an endless chase for external approval or control, but grounded in the awareness of your true self. Part 3. Becoming whole. The return of the forgotten self. One of Jung's most important teachings is that the walls between the ego and the subconscious must be broken down before one can meet one's true essence. While the individual in modern society is focused on doing too much to succeed in the external world, Jung advocated a process of inner silence and acceptance. The basis of an inner transformation is not only to feel emotions, but also to find the meaning behind them. The things that bind us to our identities, safe spaces, and habits eventually become limiting. These limitations are patterns set by the ego. While the ego is shaped by the norms imposed by society, somewhere deeper down the shadow emerges where our true identity is hidden. According to Jung, without recognizing this shadow, it is impossible to reach our true self. There are many aspects in all of us that do not fit the norms of society, that are not accepted, unseen, or ignored. These aspects become emotional baggage and negative beliefs. Emotions, like a compass, are a tool to guide us to our inner truth. According to Jung, the experience of these feelings is part of the process of completion or individuation. But this process can be completed not only by accepting the feelings, but also by giving them meaning. Many people see emotional pain as something to be avoided in their lives. However, Jung argued that pain is a teacher. It is a kind of inner warning, not just a discomfort, but a sign that opens the door to a profound transformation. But in order to open this door, it is necessary to accept the pain and feel it fully. Chapter 4. The Power of Emotions. Emotions play a big role in our inner world, but we often avoid feeling them. We often become emotionally numb in order to avoid painful, complex, or uncomfortable feelings. According to Jung, this is the result of man's own psychological defenses. Emotions can often be challenging for the conscious mind because they can directly trigger our inner wounds, fears, and unconscious repressed feelings. Feeling emotional pain can cause a person to activate defense mechanisms. These defenses lead us to avoid feeling our emotions by suppressing them. However, this suppression mechanism negatively affects one's mental health in the long run. Jung stated that the suppression of emotions hinders one's development and feeds the shadow. The shadow is the repressed emotions and aspects of ourselves that are ignored by the subconscious. This repression sometimes goes beyond consciousness, and people begin to see their emotions as things that exist only on the surface. This leads to a disconnection with oneself. According to Jung, feeling emotions again is not only the beginning of healing, but also the basis for spiritual transformation. The first step in overcoming emotional numbness is to recognize and accept these feelings. Most people find it difficult to accept their emotions or pain because it can make them feel vulnerable and powerless. However, Jung argues that emotional pain is a journey of discovering one's spiritual depth. Emotions connect the individual with their inner strength and offer them the opportunity to connect with the conscious mind. Consciously opening up to emotions can be painful at times. Many people try to protect themselves by suppressing these emotions. However, according to Jung, there is meaning in pain. Accepting pain is necessary for a person to mature. Pain is something that needs to be faced, and instead of running away from it, one needs to make peace with it. This process involves not only pain, but also gaining emotional wisdom. Behind emotional numbness lies subconscious material, which Jung called the shadow. The shadow contains emotional and psychological elements that the ego does not accept, repress, or recognize. This shadow is an important component for the psychological health of the individual, because without understanding and confronting it, one cannot be fully integrated. Jung's shadow work aims to recognize these repressed emotions and unconscious blocks. Shadow work involves going into one's own unconscious and recognizing the repressed emotions there. This process is necessary to break emotional numbness and consciously feel emotions again. Embracing the shadow means accepting not only the negative emotions, but also the valuable aspects that are rejected by the conscious mind. The breaking of emotional numbness is also related to Jung's process of individuation. Individuation is the integration of both the conscious and unconscious aspects of the person, self-knowledge and becoming a whole person. Part of this process is the full feeling of emotions. According to Jung, every emotion is a part of human development, and an emotion can only show its healing power when it is felt. Emotional healing requires making peace with our inner world. This peace begins with the acceptance of emotional pain and difficulties. Many people live in a numb way to avoid emotional pain, but according to Jung, pain is a meaningful part of life, and accepting it can make a person stronger and more mature. This process can be initiated by accepting one's fears and traumas. Emotions express the deepest aspects of the human being, and feeling them is not only a way of an inner healing process, but also of a deeper connection. According to Jung, feeling emotions is the key to spiritual health and individuation. When a person manages to overcome emotional numbness, they not only face their pain, but also connect with their deepest desires. Emotions guide a person as part of their inner journey. On this journey, one can feel pain and joy together and make peace with both the dark and the light aspects of oneself. When we regain emotional health, Jung's teachings enable us to connect more deeply with ourselves and with our environment. By feeling inner pain, we actually discover the true power of life. Chapter 5. Emotional Awakening. Carl Jung argues that emotions are not only reactions, but also a bridge between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. Emotions are not just temporary and superficial experiences. They are powerful messages that emanate from the depths of the human being, from the richness of the subconscious mind and the spiritual world. Emotions are often ignored or suppressed because people think it is scary or painful to feel them. However, Jung states that understanding emotions and being able to feel them is one of the most important steps in regaining one's inner strength and spiritual health. Emotional awareness is not only recognizing one's immediate emotional state, but also discovering the deeper meaning behind one's emotions. Feeling an emotion is more than simply a temporary reaction. It is like starting a dialogue with your inner world. According to Jung, this dialogue is about trying to find the balance between the ego and the unconscious. By becoming aware of their thoughts and feelings, a person can better understand their inner conflicts and unconsciously repressed aspects. Emotional awareness allows not only to see one's own state of mind, but also to discover a greater meaning behind those feelings. In this process, one accepts one's repressed fears, desires, and traumas, so that an essential integration takes place. Chapter 6. Emotional Resistance. Although emotional awareness of our inner world opens the door to healing, sometimes confronting emotions can lead to strong resistance. According to Jung, the ego, the conscious mind, past traumas and defense mechanisms create a natural resistance to emotional pain. People tend to run away from pain because of the pain they have experienced in the past. This leads to emotional resistance. Emotional resistance usually manifests itself in the following ways: fear of feeling, denial of pain, and conscious suppression of emotional experiences. However, Jung states that overcoming emotional resistance is a critical step in one's development. True healing is made possible by accepting the pain and learning from it. Dealing with emotional resistance is often very difficult because this process means that the ego's defense mechanisms are shaken. The ego may prefer to suppress and ignore past pain in order to protect itself, but this only creates a deeper inner emptiness. According to Jung, overcoming these defenses is necessary for the person to be able to fully heal and integrate. Jung's concept of the shadow relates to aspects of the individual that they reject, repress, or avoid confronting. This can often be dark, frightening, or unwanted elements in the personality. The shadow consists of feelings, thoughts, and behaviors that a person does not want to consciously acknowledge. Jung emphasizes that these dark aspects play an important role in the development of the individual. Accepting this shadow is necessary not only for emotional healing, but also for inner wholeness. Many people reject their shadow because these aspects are often socially unacceptable, negative, or guilt-ridden. However, according to Jung, without accepting this shadow, one cannot fully recognize oneself. Recognizing, respecting, and confronting the shadow is one of the most important steps in one's inner journey. In doing so, one needs to overcome one's emotional resistance and develop a more compassionate and understanding attitude towards oneself. According to Jung, inner integrity is about establishing a healthy balance between the ego and the unconscious. Achieving this balance is a critical step for the individual to fully recognize himself and regain his mental health. In the process of emotional healing, one must make peace with both the conscious and subconscious worlds. Jung emphasized that when the ego ignores or denies the unconscious for too long, a psychological imbalance occurs. This imbalance often manifests as anxiety, depression, disconnection, or a feeling of meaninglessness. Emotional healing begins when we stop seeing these symptoms as enemies and start recognizing them as messages, signals from the unconscious urging us to pay attention to what we've been avoiding. To restore balance, one must engage in an honest inner dialogue. This means listening deeply to dreams, emotions, and intuitions, and confronting the aspects of the self that the ego would rather reject, a process Jung called shadow work. The shadow contains all the parts of ourselves we have disowned or judged, yet integrating it is crucial for wholeness. This does not mean indulging every dark impulse, but recognizing it, understanding its origin, and transforming it through awareness and acceptance. In this journey, solitude and introspection become powerful tools. Jung believed that real change does not come from external validation or achievements, but from an inner confrontation with the self. Through this confrontation, the ego slowly relinquishes its need to control everything and begins to trust the deeper intelligence of the psyche. As the ego loosens its rigid grip, a profound shift begins to occur. The individual starts to live not according to imposed expectations or surface-level goals, but in alignment with an inner truth. This alignment doesn't happen overnight. It often emerges through periods of discomfort, emotional turbulence, and uncertainty. Yet Jung believed these phases were not signs of failure, but essential steps in the process of individuation. Only by descending into the depths of our inner world, confronting fear, loss, and long-buried wounds, can we uncover the authentic self that has long been overshadowed by the masks we wear for the world. In this inner landscape, solitude is not loneliness, but communion with the soul. It's in stillness that we begin to hear the quiet voice of the unconscious, through symbols, dreams, synchronicities, and bodily sensations. Introspection allows us to decode these messages, giving meaning to our experiences and guiding our choices. Over time, this dialogue between the conscious and unconscious creates a sense of wholeness that no external success can replace. Jung taught that when we trust this process, when we let go of who we think we're supposed to be and embrace who we truly are, we come home to ourselves. And in that return, we don't just heal, we awaken. The ego is usually the part of an individual that forms their identity and acts in accordance with social norms. However, living only with the ego can lead to a distancing from one's true self. The subconscious, on the other hand, contains deep psychological elements such as repressed emotions, traumas, fears, and desires. Jung emphasizes the importance of balancing these two areas. True healing and integration takes place when the ego combines its conscious thoughts and the deeper elements of the unconscious. Integration is not only about healing emotional wounds from the past, it is also about accepting the different aspects of one's life and uniting them in a holistic way. Jung argues that the process of individuation requires all these parts to come together in harmony. When man accepts the contrasts within himself, he fully discovers his essence. Emotions are a reflection of one's identity and inner strength. According to Jung, emotions are not only reactions to external events, they express the individual's mental state, past experiences, and inner conflicts. When emotions are felt again, one begins to live a life closer to one's essence. It is also a way to restore wholeness and peace in the inner world. Feeling emotions again, accepting the pain and understanding it, is a kind of spiritual rebirth. This process is not only healing, but also self-discovery, gaining a deeper inner wisdom and freedom. According to Jung, the inner journey is completed by the union of all these aspects of oneself. Jung emphasizes that discovering one's inner strength enables one to develop a healthier and more balanced attitude towards the external world. Emotions are an indicator of inner strength. Emotions mean not only weakness, but also personal strength and maturity. A person can accept emotional pain and find his inner strength by making sense of it. In Jung's teachings, the process of the higher self, or individuation, is all about discovering one's full inner strength and accepting oneself fully. The inner journey is completed by respecting emotions, facing pain, and making peace with the darker aspects of the unconscious. This process leads to spiritual health and inner wholeness. Ultimately, being able to feel your emotions again is not only about letting go of the pain of the past, but also about finding the power within yourself to completely transform your life. Jung's teachings show that emotional awareness not only improves your spiritual health, but also helps you discover your true self. If this video had an impact on you, you have received a message that your subconscious mind has been wanting to hear for a long time. Now stop, feel, and accept it. This shift is an opportunity for you to rediscover your inner power. If this video has made a difference to you, send it to someone close to you. Perhaps you will help that person to find themselves too. It is never too late to initiate change in your life. Act now.